When it comes to Kendrick Lamar, and when it comes to Drake, if you're ready to see how Drake turning ice cubes into an entire rollout somehow connects to his album finally getting closer, and how we now have new information about what Iceman is actually going to sound like, leave a like and let's talk about it. Because yes, the rumors are true. Diss tracks are absolutely going to be part of this project, and the main person being targeted is exactly who everybody already expects. Before we get deeper into this, somehow Drake putting giant ice blocks on display managed to revive excitement inside his fan base without him even releasing music yet. So go ahead, melt the Iceman, leave a like and subscribe. Because Drake fans have genuinely started treating a frozen cube like a historic cultural moment, when all Drake really did was hide a reveal inside a chunk of ice, and people are standing around admiring it like it's art. That alone tells you the current state of things.
Clearly, this whole ice gimmick is aimed at Drake's younger audience and the streamer crowd chasing viral moments, but that's not even the interesting part here. What matters more is the actual information starting to leak from behind the scenes about this album. While fans are busy studying melting ice like it contains ancient secrets, insiders are quietly revealing what Iceman is actually about. And once you hear what this album supposedly centers around, especially in 2026, it almost feels unreal. Just to be clear, this isn't me trying to hype up Iceman. I'm more interested in looking at what's genuinely being reported by people close to the situation. And based on what industry insiders are saying, the direction of this album should surprise absolutely nobody considering the last 2 years, yet somehow it still feels ridiculous. Because no matter how cinematic or cool Drake's ice sculptures look, they're distractions. None of it actually tells us anything about the music itself.
Whether you think the whole ice stunt is genius marketing or one of the corniest rollouts ever, honestly doesn't matter. What matters is the music that eventually comes after it. Right now, Drake's strategy seems completely built around presentation instead of substance. Huge visuals, theatrical rollout moments, cinematic buildup, all before anyone has heard an actual song. And honestly, that says a lot about how much confidence there might be internally about the music itself. Think about the situation for a second. Drake hasn't released a new single. He hasn't dropped a meaningful snippet. He hasn't given people an actual musical reason to believe in the project yet. Instead, he put out giant ice cubes, and people immediately started talking again. That's the power of branding mixed with nostalgia carrying the momentum. It's enough to keep attention alive. But it still isn't music. And until the music actually arrives, none of this changes his standing inside hip-hop. To be fair though, this is probably the most effort Drake has put into an album rollout in years. The visuals, the staging, the pacing, the mystery, it's all extremely intentional. Clearly he understands how important this moment is for his career. But spectacle can only go so far if the music underneath it doesn't deliver. At some point, the songs themselves need to stand without the help of giant ice props and cinematic storytelling. And that's really the biggest issue. Drake keeps teasing the idea of music without actually giving people the music. The newest gimmick is supposedly a hard drive hidden inside the ice sculpture containing the album release date once the ice melts. So now fans are literally waiting for frozen water to melt in order to get an album date in 2026 from one of the biggest artists in music history. We are officially watching Drake try to rewrite 2 years of rap history through what basically feels like a live service video game event. Instead of staring at ice cubes, let's talk about what's reportedly inside the album, because there's now information coming from a source with a strong track record. This is the same insider who predicted Baby Keem's album timing perfectly, knew Don Toliver's release plans ahead of time, and accurately leaked multiple major drops this year. And according to that insider, here's what Iceman supposedly looks like. Drake is reportedly going directly at his enemies on Iceman. The project is being described as his most lyrical album yet. And yes, the hidden hard drive inside the ice apparently contains the release date. But honestly, the first 2 details are what actually matter here. Strip away the marketing, and what we're really being told is that Iceman is essentially going to be a revenge album. A project full of diss records and lingering resentment aimed at everybody Drake feels betrayed by over the past couple years, which lines up perfectly with every leak, every snippet, and every rumor surrounding the project for months now.
And as for the claim that this will be Drake's most lyrical album ever, we've heard this exact promise before. During the rollout for All the Dogs, Lil Yachty was saying the exact same thing. Fans got excited, expectations exploded, and then the album ended up feeling bloated and forgettable for a lot of listeners. So forgive people for being skeptical hearing the same marketing language again. Unless Drake has completely rebuilt the people around him creatively, that claim deserves caution. What actually feels believable is this: Iceman could genuinely contain more diss tracks than almost any major rap album we've ever seen. That prediction honestly fits everything we know so far. Drake has spent 2 years collecting resentment, rewriting bars, tweaking responses, flipping Not Like Us references in leaks, and quietly building tension. The anger, the bitterness, the competitiveness, all of it has been stacking up. And now that the rollout is entering its biggest phase, all that energy is probably about to explode onto a lot of people.
Everything coming from the OVO side points in the same direction. This is supposedly a bars-heavy, confrontational project centered around the aftermath of the beef. And honestly, it makes sense from Drake's perspective. The only recent song of his that generated major conversation was What Did I Miss, because it directly addressed the beef. Meanwhile, tracks like Doghouse and Which One came and went with almost no impact. Drake and the people around him clearly understand what topics still get audiences paying attention. And naturally, the #1 target is the person who changed the entire direction of Drake's career over the last 2 years, Kendrick Lamar. We're basically watching Drake prepare for a second round nearly 2 years after the original battle exploded. But the question now isn't only whether the diss bars will hit. The bigger question is whether Drake can even be taken seriously in rap beef anymore after everything he's done outside the booth.
Because this is the real problem. Drake could theoretically write the greatest diss track ever recorded. He could deliver the sharpest lyrical breakdown of Kendrick imaginable, and none of it changes one unavoidable reality. This is still the same artist who brought rap beef into a courtroom, tried to challenge the boundaries of artistic speech, and used legal action after losing a battle publicly. You can't spend months treating diss tracks like legal violations and then suddenly jump back into making diss tracks yourself. The contradiction is impossible to ignore. And honestly, Kendrick doesn't even need to respond anymore for Drake to look bad here. Kendrick could disappear completely and still come out ahead. Because the second Drake officially releases another diss record while simultaneously involved in lawsuits connected to diss records, every rapper, fan, journalist, and commentator will immediately point out the contradiction. There's no clean way around it. Either diss tracks are part of rap culture and artistic competition, or they're harmful enough to sue over. You can't argue both sides at once.
And honestly, the potential target list on Iceman sounds wild already. Kendrick is obviously the centerpiece, but beyond him, are we going to hear shots at Jay-Z over the Super Bowl situation? Another response toward Pusha T? Bars aimed at Tyler, Schoolboy Q, Ab-Soul, Pharrell, or anyone tied to Kendrick's circle? Will Drake start mentioning Joe Budden, Peter Rosenberg, or Ebro directly for criticizing him publicly? And outside rap entirely, will LeBron James become one of the biggest targets because Drake seems personally hurt by him lately? Based on the snippets already floating around, the Schoolboy Q references, the repeated flips of Not Like Us, it's obvious Drake has been thinking about these people non-stop. This project has been brewing emotionally for a long time. But the complicated part is that Drake's pattern during beefs has consistently involved targeting women connected to his male rivals instead of focusing directly on the men themselves. And if Iceman follows that same pattern, if names like Whitney, Savannah James, or Virginia Williams start showing up in bars, the backlash is going to be brutal.
Because going after women outside the rap world while also suing over diss tracks yourself is basically a PR disaster waiting to happen. There's no realistic way to spin that positively. And history suggests Drake may very well go there, because that's been his approach repeatedly during major rap conflicts. Every single time it ends up overshadowing whatever point he was trying to make. Drake also clearly understands that the theatrics are doing heavy lifting here. The smoke visuals, the Adonis video, the Ice Fortress rollout, all of it exists because he knows the music alone may not be enough to completely change the narrative around him. So he's trying to create atmosphere first, build anticipation first, create the feeling of an event before the music even arrives. Strategically, that actually makes sense. But strategies like that only work if the songs eventually live up to the spectacle. And that's the part nobody around Drake seems fully confident about.
The deepest issue Drake faces with Iceman isn't whether the bars are sharp or whether the beats are good.
It's that he's put himself in a position where his credibility around rap beef is permanently damaged, regardless of what the album sounds like. He can't position himself as the champion of competitive rap while simultaneously trying to limit competitive rap through legal action. He can't aggressively call people out while suing over aggressive criticism aimed at him. He's been trying to play both aggressor and victim at the same time for 2 years now, and that contradiction is probably what will define Iceman more than the actual music itself. Even if Drake somehow delivers the most energetic and lyrical project of his career, the conversation will immediately circle back to the lawsuit, back to the legal filings, back to the fact that the person making these aggressive diss records is also the same person trying to legally challenge diss records. That's the box Drake created for himself. No rollout, no cinematic visuals, and no ice sculpture can erase that.
What Drake probably needed to make was an album focused inward. An album about himself instead of Kendrick, LeBron, Pusha T, or everybody else. Something reflective, something accountable, something honest about what happened and why things spiraled this way. That's the type of album that might have shifted public perception. Instead, it sounds like we're getting a project fueled by resentment, aimed at everybody except himself. And a revenge album from Drake's current position feels more likely to create memes than respect. Because everything surrounding this rollout, the leaks, the insiders, the marketing, the lawsuits, the ice cubes, the smoke effects, points towards one reality. Drake still hasn't emotionally processed what happened. He hasn't accepted it, moved beyond it, or evolved from it. This album sounds like it's coming from unresolved anger and bruised pride, rather than creative clarity. And albums built from that mindset rarely age well. They don't become timeless classics. They become warnings.
And the lawsuit is still happening in the background, still active, still forcing itself into every conversation about Drake. Which means even after Iceman releases, the narrative won't reset. Every interview, every review, every reaction video is still going to bring up the legal situation. There's no fresh start available while that case continues hanging over everything. So when you combine all of it together, the death-heavy concept, the ongoing lawsuit, the history of targeting women connected to rivals, the contradiction of making rap beef music while legally fighting rap beef, this starts looking like an album almost designed to fail culturally. Not because Drake suddenly forgot how to make music, but because the surrounding circumstances make it incredibly difficult for people to receive the music the way he wants them to.
The one thing that genuinely interests me, though, is how Drake plans to address the lawsuit on the album, if he even addresses it at all, because ignoring it completely would create the loudest silence imaginable. Every diss bar would instantly get filtered through that contradiction. And if he tries explaining it away or reframing it, there's a real chance he only exposes himself further in the process. At the end of the day, this all comes down to one thing. Drake is stepping back into rap beef using the exact weapon, diss tracks and competitive bars, that he simultaneously spent months trying to challenge legally. And he seems to believe giant rollout moments and elaborate visuals will distract people from that contradiction. They won't. Hip-hop remembers everything, and the second this album drops, that contradiction will be front and center. Beyond Kendrick alone, this project could end up containing one of the longest target lists we've ever seen on a rap album. Kendrick at the top, LeBron potentially right behind him, then Pusha T, Jay-Z, media personalities, women tied to rivals, maybe even random celebrities Drake still feels slighted by. Drake has spent 2 years collecting grievances, and if all of them make it onto this album, the sheer level of pettiness could become historic.
But having a massive list of targets doesn't automatically equal good music, and that's exactly the trap Drake might be walking into. An album attacking Kendrick Lamar, LeBron James, Jay-Z, Pusha T, Schoolboy Q, media figures, and multiple women isn't going to feel like a triumphant comeback to many people. It's going to feel like a public breakdown in album form, a full record documenting every grudge Drake refuses to let go of. And people will probably laugh, not necessarily because the bars are weak, but because Drake himself damaged the credibility those bars need in order to matter. And honestly, that's what Drake should probably be thinking about most right now. Not streaming numbers, not social media hype, not what academics says online. The real question is legacy. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when people look back on the Iceman era, the
The lawsuit, the ice cubes, the leaks, the marketing stunts? What story are they going to remember? And based on everything available right now, it feels like the story of an artist who couldn't accept losing, chose bitterness over growth, and turned an album into proof of decline instead of redemption.
Because the albums that truly last in hip-hop usually reveal something genuine about the artists making them, not just competitive energy, actual honesty and vulnerability. And an album centered entirely around hating Kendrick Lamar, LeBron James, and Pusha T doesn't really offer that. Instead, it reveals what Drake has emotionally become over the last 2 years, and that image probably won't be flattering. And if Drake really does decide to target women on this project, Savannah James, Whitney, Virginia Williams, or others, it won't just support Kendrick's criticisms from Not Like Us, it'll reinforce them completely. Because one of Kendrick's main portrayals of Drake was someone who weaponizes women connected to his rivals instead of confronting the rivals directly. If Drake repeats that exact behavior on his comeback album, it becomes the most self-destructive move possible. So what exactly is Drake trying to accomplish here? What's the actual end goal of releasing a diss-heavy revenge album 2 years after the original beef, while still dealing with lawsuits tied to it? Sure, OVLZans will celebrate, streamers will milk content from it, academics will have weeks of material. But after that, what lasting achievement actually comes from this? Because rebuilding respect in music doesn't happen through giant ice sculptures and petty bars. It happens through songs that genuinely connect with people emotionally. And nothing about the Iceman Rollout suggests that's where this is heading.
If Drake really spends this album targeting women connected to rivals, Rihanna, Serena, Whitney, Savannah, Virginia, the PR nightmare is basically already guaranteed before the album even drops. Every diss will reinforce Kendrick's narrative about him. Every flex will get overshadowed by the lawsuit. Every attempt at dominance will immediately get undercut by the last 2 years of public fallout. There really isn't a clean escape route anymore. Either Drake ignores all the contradictions and gets criticized for it, or he tries addressing them and risks exposing himself even further. The only remaining mystery is how dramatic the fallout becomes, because albums built entirely around unresolved bitterness rarely age gracefully. And right now, Iceman feels less like Drake's comeback story and more like the final chapter explaining exactly why his career needed saving in the first place.